Russian military has concluded that Washington is preparing a surprise nuclear attack on Russia. This is an article by a guy called Paul Craig Roberts, who served in the Reagan administration. And he says Donald Trump, as president of the United States, was humanity's hope. He wasn't mine, but okay. Or I should say, the hope that part of humanity, aware of the danger inherent in provoking conflict between nuclear powers. For 2 decades, Clinton, George W. Bush, and Obama regimes have thrown sticks, stones, and nasty words at the Russian bear. The US has broken and withdrawn from security agreement after security agreement and has compounded the threat that Russia sees by conducting war games on Russia's borders, staging a coup in Ukraine, a province of Russia for centuries, and by a continuous stream of false accusations against Russia. The result, Roberts says, of this irresponsible, thoughtless, and reckless policy toward Russia was the announcement a few weeks ago, ignored by the US media, he says, by the Russian High Command, that Russia military planners have concluded that Washington is preparing a surprise nuclear attack on Russia. And what he goes on to say is that Trump really would like to get closer to Russia in terms of less antagonism. And I think there's truth in that. And this is why immediately he came to power, or in theory power, Trump, that this whole Russian thing started. Russia, this, Russia rigged the election, Russia got Trump in, Trump was working with Russia. It's not true in terms of the political level. I'm sure Trump's got a lot of things that he wouldn't like to come out in terms of business relationships with people in Russia and stuff like that. But I'm talking about on the political level. And so the idea was, and is continuing, that you can stop any coming closer together with Russia by making these allegations constantly, to the point where Trump's going, well, actually, I can't get closer to Russia because it will just give more evidence to these forces that actually I am close to Russia, so I've got to keep one step back. I think it's reluctant. I think he does see the sense of ending the conflict, because I don't think he realizes anything like what he's dealing with. But the longer he's in office, I'm sure the pennies will drop, because Trump is a gift from heaven to those that have this agenda for global control in so many areas. Look, first thing he did was put Goldman Sachs in charge of the financial control of the United States and the Treasury Department, etc. But there were one or two things with Trump that actually didn't sit. And one of the key ones is getting closer to Russia, because they want a conflict with Russia, as I've been saying, for so long. And so that's what this is all about. And this week, you can start to see where the power is, because as Craig Roberts says here, Trump signed this sanctions. Well, he doesn't say he signed. He says he talks about him signing. He has subsequently, since his article came out, signed into being more sanctions against Russia, which is antagonizing Russia and making the relationship even more fragile and brittle, because the puppets on Capitol Hill have pushed through these sanctions and have pressured Trump into signing them into law. And what Roberts says is that Trump could take the case. He didn't, because he signed it, but he could take the case to the American people in a major speech and point out that Congress is violating the separations of power over pushing these sanctions. hamstringing the power of the presidency and making it illegal for him to reduce the dangerous tensions that previous administrations have created in a major nuclear with a major nuclear power, i.e. Russia. Trump could also, Roberts says, tell Congress that their law is unconstitutional and that he won't sign or veto the bill, and if Congress persists, he will go to the Supreme Court. But like I say, the power dynamic has been moving away from Trump, if it was ever there, ever since he got into power. And this is what followed. Trump signs what he calls seriously flawed bill imposing new sanctions on Russia. President Trump on Wednesday signed a bill that imposes new sanctions on Russia, ending immediate hopes that he might be able to reset US relations with the Kremlin, as Congress overruled his opposition to the provision's curb on his executive power. Trump's reluctant signing of the legislation came nearly a week after it was approved by an overwhelming bipartisan majority in the Senate and after a similarly large majority in the House. The president issued two statements outlining his concerns with the bill, which he called seriously flawed, primarily because it limits his ability to negotiate sanctions without congressional approval. By limiting the executive's flexibility, the bill makes it harder for the United States to strike good deals for the American people and will drive China, Russia, and North Korea much closer together, Trump said in a statement on Wednesday morning. The framers of our Constitution put foreign affairs in the hands of the president, etc., etc. So, and I think he is genuine. He doesn't want to sign that bill, but he did. And he did because the power dynamic is not with Trump, it's with that which is manipulating Trump. And like I say, there are many, many, many things about Trump that are good for this agenda. Not least, he's handed power away from the presidency in general to, two generals, to Mad Dog Mattis at the Pentagon, etc., to make and push through military decisions on his own behest. And the chaos in the White House continued this week with this guy, Anthony Scaramucci, who was put in charge of basically White House communications and lasted just a few days. This headline says, 1 p.m., Trump tweets saying there's no White House chaos. 7 p.m., he sacks media chief after just 10 days in the job. Controversial White House media chief Anthony Scaramucci was sacked last night after little more than a week in the job, which is not surprising. It's not surprising that he was sacked because he's been shooting his mouth off and creating tremendous conflict, people resigning as a result of him A, being appointed, and B, for what he said, and others being moved out. And so it was not that he was removed after 10 days. It's that which idiot decided that he should have the job in the first place. Once he started doing the interviews immediately after his appointment, it was one of them. What are you appointing this guy for? He's obviously an egomaniac of extreme proportions, shooting from the hip in all directions. What are you doing? And there's so much chaos in that administration in terms of personnel and the infighting of personnel. And that's good, because chaos is the easiest thing in the world to manipulate. Stability is the worst nightmare of the manipulator.